Hello all, and welcome back to another episode of Efficio's Transforming Public Procurement Microcast series, where we're continuing to share insights to help you better understand the new Procurement Act regulations. In this week's episode, I'm joined by Allie Feuerlein, a consultant from our public sector practice, to discuss the specifics around terminating a procurement. Welcome, Allie. So can you tell us what's changing here?
Hi, Jack. Yeah, thanks for having me on this series. So basically, the Act has a new requirement to give notice if a procurement is discontinued prior to contract award by publishing what's called a procurement termination notice on the central digital platform. This is meant to ensure public information on live procurements is up to date, and it could reduce unnecessary questions from suppliers as well.
Great. So how is this different from the old regs?
Right. So contracting authorities have the same broad discretion to terminate procurement before the award of a contract as they did under PCR 2015. However, if a tender notice or a transparency notice have been published and the decision is made to terminate the procurement before awarding the contract, then this procurement termination notice must be published. This also applies for terminating a procurement procedure that was intending to set up a new framework or to award a contract under dynamic market. And then finally, if a tender notice or transparency notice haven't been published, but say other notices have, contracting authorities might also voluntarily decide to issue this termination notice as well.
Okay, that makes sense. So in some circumstances, another mandatory notice to consider. And what's the aim of this notice and what should be included in it?
Yeah, so the aim of this notice is transparency and accurate data collection and analysis. It's going to basically inform the market that the procurement has been terminated. Again, that can help reduce uncertainty for suppliers as well, potentially. So there are three main things that need to be included. Procurement termination notice must set out the procurement details, so the title of the procurement and the unique identifier for the procurement. It must include a statement that the contract authority has decided not to award the contract. And then finally, it needs to include the date that that decision was made.
Thanks. And when does the procurement termination notice need to be published?
Right, so the notice must be published as soon as reasonably possible after the decision to terminate the procurement has been made. That's especially important in order to avoid suppliers incurring unnecessary costs.
Okay, so one more thing. What about part terminations then?
Yeah, so part terminations would be, for example, if you decided not to proceed with one or more of the lots, but you didn't want to cancel the entire procurement. Whether or not you'd be actually permitted to partially terminate in that way is going to depend on whether it's classed as a permitted modification of the terms of a procurement, and that's under Section 31 of the new Act. If it's not a permitted modification, then the whole tender needs to be terminated. But if it is permitted, then the tender notice and any associated tender documents affected by that modification, those would all need to be updated or republished, but a procurement termination notice itself would not be required in that case.
Okay, thanks, Ali. That's really clear and a great overview into procurement terminations. And we'll definitely have a future episode on modifications, which I'm sure will also be of interest. I hope everyone enjoyed today's microcast. As always, please do post any thoughts or questions in the chat and get in touch with Ali or myself for future topics you want to hear about. We'll see you all next week.